Everyone, welcome to God's Got This World. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, sandwich, cookies, whatever you'd like. I hope you're having a great day. I sure am. And let's get into the word. We're in Genesis 34 and verse 1. So Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the women who lived there. She was seen by Hamar's son Shechem, the leader of the Hivites, and he grabbed her and raped her. But Shechem was attracted to Dinah, so he told her how much he loved her. He even asked his father to get her to be his wife. Meanwhile, Jacob heard what had happened, but his sons were out in the fields with the cattle, so he did not do anything at the time. Hamor arrived at Jacob's home just as Jacob's sons were coming in from work. And when they learned that their sister had been raped, they became furiously angry. Nothing is more disgraceful than rape, and it should not be tolerated in Israel or anywhere for that matter. Hamor said to Jacob and his sons, "My son Shechem really loves Dinah. Please let him marry her. Why don't you start letting your families marry into our families and ours marry into yours? You can share this land with us. Move freely about until you find the property you want, and then buy it and settle down there." Shechem added, "Do this favor for me, and I'll give whatever you want. Ask anything, no matter how expensive. I'll do anything. Just let me marry Dinah." Jacob's sons wanted to get even with Shechem and his father because of what had happened to their sister, so they tricked him by saying, "You're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for us to let you marry Dinah now. I know that Israelite boys are circumcised from the age of 8 years old, and no uncircumcised man could be part of the people of Israel. So that's why this is so important to be circumcised, as if Shechem wanted to be part of this family. But we will let you marry her if you and the other men in your tribe get circumcised. Then our family can marry into yours, and ours can marry into yours, and we can live together like one nation. But if you don't agree to get circumcised, we'll take Dinah and leave this place." Hamor and Shechem liked what was said. Shechem was the most respected person in his family, and he was so in love with Dinah that he hurried off to get everything done. The two men met with the other leaders of their city, and they told them, "These people really are friendly. Why not let them move freely about until they find the property they want? There's enough land here for them and for us. Then our families can marry into theirs, and theirs can marry into ours. We have to do only one thing before they will agree to stay here and become one nation with us. Our men will have to be circumcised like their men. Just think, we'll get their property as well as their flocks and their herds, and all we have to do is to agree, and they will live here with us." Every grown man followed this advice, and they all got circumcised. Now 3 days later, the men who had been circumcised were still weak from pain. So Simeon and Levi, 2 of Dinah's brothers, attacked with their swords, and they killed every man in town, including Hamor and Shechem. Then they took Dinah and left. Jacob's other sons came and took everything they wanted, and all this was done because of the horrible thing that had happened to their sister. They took sheep, goats, donkeys, and everything else that was in the town or the fields, and after taking everything of value from the houses, they dragged away the wives and the children of these victims. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "Look what you've done. Now I'm in real trouble with the Canaanites and Perizzites who live around here. There aren't many of us, and if they attack, they'll kill everyone in my household." They answered, "Was it right to let our own sister be treated this way?" God told Jacob, "Return to Bethel, where I appeared to you when you were running from your brother Esau. Make your home there and build an altar for me." Jacob said to his family and to everyone else who was traveling with him, "Get rid of your foreign gods, then make yourselves acceptable to worship God and put on clean clothes. Afterwards, we'll go to Bethel. I will build an altar there for God, who answered my prayers when I was in trouble, and who's always been by my side. And that's what God does. When you're in trouble, he answers your prayers, and he said he'll never leave you nor forsake you. He's always by your side. You can be sure of that one thing. You can trust nothing else, but you can be sure of that one thing. So everyone gave Jacob their idols and their earrings, and he buried them under the oak tree near Shechem. While Jacob and his family were traveling through Canaan, God terrified the people in the town so much that no one dared bother them. Finally, they reached Bethel, also known as Luz. Jacob built an altar there and called it God of Bethel, because that was the place where God had appeared to him when he was running from Esau. And while they were there, Rebekah's personal servant Deborah died. They buried her under an oak tree, and they called it the Weeping Oak. Now, after Jacob came back to the land of Canaan, God appeared to him again. This time he gave Jacob a new name and blessed him by saying, I am God all-powerful, and from now on your name will be Israel instead of Jacob. You will have many children. Your descendants will become nations, and some of the men in your family will even be kings. I will give you the land that I promised to Abraham and Isaac, and it will belong to your family forever. After God had gone, Jacob set up a large rock so that he would remember what had happened there. And then he poured wine and olive oil on the rock to show that it was dedicated to God. And he named the place Bethel. Now Jacob and his family had left Bethel and were still a long way from Ephrath when the time came for Rachel's baby to be born. She was having a rough time, though. But the women who was helping her said, the woman, don't worry. It's a boy. Rachel was at the point of death, and right before dying, she said, I'll name him Benoni. But Jacob called him Benjamin. And in Hebrew, Benoni means son of my sorrow. Now, Benjamin in Hebrew can mean son at my right side, or the place of power. So Rachel was buried beside the road to Ephrath, which is called Bethlehem. Jacob set up a tombstone over her grave, and it is still there. Jacob, also known as Israel now, traveled to the south of Eder Tower, where he set up camp. And during their time there, Jacob's oldest son, Reuben, slept with Bilhah, who was one of Jacob's other wives. And Jacob found out about it. Oh boy. Jacob had 12 sons while living in northern Syria. His firstborn, Reuben, was the son of Leah, who later gave birth to Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Leah's servant Zilpah had 2 sons, Gad and Asher. Jacob and his wife Rachel had Joseph and Benjamin. Rachel's servant woman, Bilhah, had 2 more sons, Dan and Naphtali. Jacob went to his father Isaac at Hebron, also called Mamre, or Gil-Arba, where Isaac's father Abraham had lived as a foreigner. And Isaac died at the ripe old age of 180. Then his sons Esau and Jacob buried him, 180 years old. Can't even imagine that. Esau, also known as Edom, had many descendants, and he married 3 Canaanite women. The first was Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. The second was Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, and the granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite. The third was Basemath, who was Ishmael's daughter and Naboth's sister. Esau and his 3 wives had 5 sons while they were in Canaan. Adah's son was Eliphaz. Basemath's son was Ruel. Obalamah's 3 sons were Jush, Shalem, and Korah. Esau took his children and his wives and his relatives and his servants, his animals and his possessions he had gotten while in Canaan, and moved far from Jacob. He did this because the land it was too crowded and could not support him and his brother with their flocks and their herds. And that's why Esau made his home in the hill country of Zair. Esau lived in the hill country of Zair and was the ancestor of the Edomites. Esau had 3 wives, Adah, Basemath, and Obalamah. Here is a list of his descendants. Esau, he had a son named Eliphaz, whose sons were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Timnah was the other wife of Esau's son Eliphaz, and she had a son named Amalek. Esau and Basemath had a son named Reuel, whose sons were Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mitzah. Esau and Oholibamah had 3 sons, Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. Esau and Adah's oldest son was Eliphaz, and the clans that descended from him were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. These and Esau's other descendants lived in the land of Edom. And the clans that descended from Esau and Basemath's son Reuel were Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mitzah. The clans that descended from Esau and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, were Jeush, Jalem, and Korah, and all of these clans descended from Esau, who was known as Edom. Zer was from the Horite tribe that had lived in Edom before the time of Esau. The clans that had descended from him were Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. Well, Lotan's sons were Hori and Heman, and his sister was Timnah. Shobal's sons were Alvan, Manath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. Zibeon's sons were Ajah and Anah, the same Anah who found an oasis in the desert while taking the donkeys of his father out to the pasture. Anah's children were Dishon and Oholibamah. Dishon's sons were Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Cheran. And Ezer's sons were Bilhan, Zavan, and Egkan. Dishon's sons were Uz and Aran. The clans of the Horites were Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishan, Ezer, and Dishan, and they lived in the land of Zer. Before there were kings in Israel, the following kings ruled Edom one after another. Bela, son of Beor, from Dinhabah, Joab, son of Zerah, from Bozrah, Husham, from the land of Teman, Hadam, from the son of Bedad, Samiah, from Maskarah, Shaul, from the city of Raboth on the Euphrates River, Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, Hadar, from the city of Pawa. His wife Methabel was the daughter of Matred and the granddaughter of Mesab. The clans that descended from Esau took their names from their families and the places where they lived. They are Timnah, Alvah, Jedath, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinon, Kenaz, Teman, Mitzbar, Magdiel, and Iram. These clans descended from Esau, who was known as Edom, the father of the Edomites. They took their names from the places where they settled. Now Jacob lived in the land of Canaan, where his father Isaac had lived, and this is the story of his family. When Jacob's son Joseph was 17 years old, he took care of the sheep with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. But he was always telling his father all sorts of bad things about his brothers. Jacob loved Joseph more than he did any of his other sons because Joseph was born after Jacob was very old. So Jacob gave Joseph a fancy coat to show that he was his favorite son. And so Joseph's brothers hated him and would not be friendly to him. One day, Joseph told his brothers what he had dreamed, and they hated him even more. Joseph said, "Let me tell you about my dream. We were out in the field tying up bundles of wheat, and suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles gathered around and bowed down to it." His brothers asked, "Do you really think you are going to be king and rule over us?" Now they hated Joseph more than ever because of what he had said about his dream. Joseph later had another dream, and he told his brothers, "Listen to what else I dreamed. The sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me." When he told his father about this dream, his father became angry and said, "What's that supposed to mean, Joseph? Are your mother and I and your brothers all going to come and bow down in front of you?" Joseph's brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept wondering about this dream. One day, when Joseph's brothers had taken the sheep to a pasture near Shechem, his father Jacob said to him, "Joseph, I want you to go to your brothers. They are with the sheep near Shechem." "Yes, sir," Joseph answered. His father said, "Go and find out how your brothers and the sheep are doing, and then come back and let me know. So he sent him from the Hebron valley. Joseph was near Shechem and wandering through the fields when a man asked, "What are you looking for?" Joseph answered, "I'm looking for my brothers who are watching the sheep. Can you tell me where they are?" "They're not here anymore," the man replied. "I overheard them say they were going to Dothan." Joseph left and found his brothers in Dothan. But before he got there, they saw him coming and they made plans to kill him. They said to one another, "Look, here comes the hero of those dreams. Let's kill him and throw him into a pit and say that some wild animal ate him. Then we'll see what happens to those dreams." Well, Reuben, the oldest brother, heard about this, and he tried to protect Joseph from them. "Let's not kill him," he said. "Don't murder him or even harm him. Just throw him into a dry well out here in the desert." Reuben planned to rescue Joseph later and take him back to his father. When Joseph came to his brothers, they pulled off his fancy coat and threw him into a dry well. As Joseph's brothers sat down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, and their camels were loaded with all kinds of spices that they were taking to Egypt. So Judah said, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and hide his body? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not harm him. After all, he is our brother." And the others agreed. When the Midianite merchants came by, Joseph's brother took him out of the well, and for 20 pieces of silver they sold him to the Ishmaelites, who then took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the well, didn't find Joseph there, he tore his clothes in sorrow. Then he went back to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone. What am I going to do?" Joseph's brothers killed a goat and dipped Joseph's fancy coat in its blood. And after this, they took the goat to their father and they said, "We found this. Look at it carefully and see if it belongs to your son Joseph." Jacob knew it was Joseph's coat, and he said, "It is my son's coat. Jacob has been torn to pieces and eaten by some wild animal." Jacob mourned for Joseph a very long time, and to show his sorrow, he tore his clothes and he wore sackcloth. All of Jacob's children came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will go to my grave mourning for my son." So Jacob kept on grieving. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold Joseph in Egypt to a man named Potiphar, who was the king's official in charge of the palace guard. Well, about that time, Judah left his brothers in the hill country and went to live near his friend Hirah in the town of Adullam. While there, he met the daughter of Shua, a Canaanite man, and Judah married her, and they had 3 sons. He named the first one she named the next one Onan, and the third one was born when Judah was in Chezib, and she named him Shelah. Later, Judah chose Tamar as a wife for his older son. But was very evil, and the Lord took his life. So Judah told Onan, "It's your duty to marry Tamar and have a child for your brother." Onan knew the child would not be his, and when he had sex with Tamar, he made sure that she would not get pregnant. The Lord wasn't pleased with Onan, and he took his life too. Judah did not want the same thing to happen to his son Shelah, and he told Tamar, "Go home to your father and live there as a widow until my son Shelah is grown." So Tamar went to live with her father. Well, some years later, Judah's wife died, and he mourned for her. He then went with his friend Hirah to the town of Timnah, where his sheep were being sheared. Tamar found out that her father-in-law Judah was going to Timnah to shear his sheep. She also realized that Shelah was now a grown man, but she had not been allowed to marry him. So she decided to dress in something other than her widow's clothes and to cover her face with a veil. And after this, she sat outside the town of Enam on the road to Timnah. While Jacob came along, he did not recognize her because of the veil. He thought she was a prostitute and asked her to sleep with him. And she asked, "What will you give me if I do?" "One of my young goats," he answered. "What will you give me to keep until you send the goat?" she asked. "What do you want?" he asked in return. The ring on that cord around your neck, was her reply. I also want the special walking stick you have with you. He gave them to her. They slept together, and she became pregnant. After returning home, Tamar took off the veil and dressed in her widow's clothes again. Judah had his friend Hira take a goat to the woman so he could get back the ring and the walking stick, but she wasn't there. Hira asked the people of Enam, "Where's the prostitute who sat along the road outside of town?" "There's never been one here," they answered. Hira went back and he told Judah, "I couldn't find the woman, and the people of Enam said no prostitute had ever been there." "If you couldn't find her, we'll just let her keep the things I gave her," Judah answered. "And we better forget about the goat, or else we'll look like fools." About 3 months later, someone told Judah, "Your daughter-in-law, Tamar, has behaved like a prostitute, and now she's pregnant." "Drag her out of town and burn her to death," Judah shouted. As Tamar was being dragged off, she sent someone to tell her father-in-law, "The man who gave me this ring, this cord, and this walking stick is the one who got me pregnant." "Those are mine," Judah admitted. "She's a better person than I am because I broke my promise to let her marry my son Shelah." And after this, Judah never slept with her again. Well, Tamar later gave birth to twins, but before either of them was born, one of them stuck a hand out of her womb. And the woman who was helping her tied a red thread around the baby's hand and explained, "This one came out first." Right away his hand went back in, and the other child was born first. The woman then said, "What an opening you've made for yourself." So they named the baby Perez. And when the brother with a red thread came out, they named him Sarah. The word Perez sounds like the word for opening in Hebrew, right? The Ishmaelites took Joseph to Egypt, and they sold him to Potiphar, the king's official in charge of the palace guard. So Joseph lived in the home of Potiphar, his Egyptian owner. Soon Potiphar realized that the Lord was helping Joseph to be successful in whatever he did. Potiphar liked Joseph and made him his personal assistant, putting him in charge of his house and all of his property. Because of Joseph, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's family and his fields. Potiphar left everything up to Joseph, and with Joseph there, the only decision he had to make was what he wanted to eat. Joseph was well built and he was handsome, and Potiphar's wife soon noticed him. She asked him to make love to her, but he refused, and he said, "My master isn't worried about anything in his house, because he has placed me in charge of everything he owns. No one in my master's house is more important than I am. The only thing he hasn't given me is you, and that's because you are his wife. I won't sin against God by doing such a terrible thing as this." Well, she kept begging Joseph day after day, but he refused to do what she wanted or even to go near her. Smart man. One day, Joseph went to Potiphar's house to do his work, and none of the other servants were there. Potiphar's wife grabbed hold of his coat and said, "Make love to me." Joseph ran out of the house, leaving her hanging onto his coat. And when this happened, she called in her servants and said, "Look, this Hebrew has come just to make fools of us. He tried to rape me, but I screamed for help. And when he heard me scream, he ran out of the house, leaving his coat with me." Potiphar's wife kept Joseph's coat until her husband came home. And then she said, "That Hebrew slave of yours, he tried to rape me. But when I screamed for help, he left his coat and ran out of the house." Potiphar became very angry and threw Joseph in the same prison where the king's prisoners were kept. And while Joseph was in prison, the Lord helped him and was good to him. He even made the jailer like Joseph so much that he put him in charge of the other prisoners and of everything that was done in the jail. The jailer did not worry about anything because the Lord was with Joseph and made him successful in all that he did. And we're going to stop there today, and we'll continue on with chapter 40 next time, about Joseph telling the meaning of the prisoner's dreams. Oh my goodness, God is so good. His word is so true. And thank goodness he made people like Joseph who kept his word and were honorable. But remember, none of us sin. And the Lord says, if any of us say we are not a sinner, we are a liar. So with his help, we can grow closer to him and even have that desire to be closer to him. So if you don't know Jesus today, please ask him to come into your life. Please let him work his miracles in you. Please let him change you to be made into the image of his Son, because that's where we're going to go into eternity. The world is a short place to live. If you're lucky, 70, 80 years, certainly not 180. But after that, what is next for you? I hope you're not thinking that's the end and there's nothing more. The Bible says there is an eternity and there is a God who loves us and who will keep us for all of eternity with him. And I know that's what I want in my life, is a God who loves me forever, unconditionally, and I get to spend eternity with him. So please ask him into your life. Ask him to forgive you for your sins you've committed, and even the ones you didn't even know you committed. Repent. That's what it means to turn back and start living your life for him, because that's all that really matters in this world. So, hey, if you like this video, leave a comment down below, subscribe, and let me know. Coming up, I'm going to be doing some different Bible subjects. I'll be doing one at a time, different areas such as all about demons, all about how to become a believer. Does God hear our prayers? Different subjects. Let me know if you have any subjects you want me to cover, and I will look into them and post another video about those subjects one at a time. So, hey guys, have a great day, and I will see you on the next one.